Good evening and welcome to tonight's candidate forum sponsored by the Chelmsford Business Association. My name is Kirk Marshall and I am the president of the association. Thank you, candidates, for your participation in this important event. The Chelmsford Business Association is a group of over 200 members that operate within the town of Chelmsford. It was established in 1990 by a group of business leaders whose goal was to address issues related to owning and operating a business in the town. The founders saw the importance of providing business opportunities for growth and resiliency. Tax parity between commercial and residential interests has been a significant part of the CBA mission. In addition to supporting the Chelmsford business community, the CBA also supports local nonprofit organizations such as the Chelmsford Food Pantry and the Paul Center. We also support community events like the 4th of July Parade and the holiday tree lighting celebration. Our association also awards an annual scholarship to a graduating high school senior. If you would like to learn more about the CBA or are interested in becoming a member, please visit our website at chelmsfordbusiness.org, or you can call us at 978-250-3858. On behalf of the association, I want to thank Chelmsford Telemedia for coordinating tonight's event. I would also like to thank Executive Director John Harrington and the members of our Public Relations Committee for their time and effort in making this night possible. Jeff Hardy, our chair, Amanda Lucia, Jim Cullen, Rick Romano, and Lynn Marcella. And now it is my pleasure to introduce tonight's moderator, Amanda Lucia.
Thank you, Kirk. Welcome, everybody, and a special welcome to our candidates tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute to respond to each question. Candidates will be asked questions that were prepared and advanced by the Candidates Night Committee, as well as the opportunity to ask one question to one of their fellow candidates. At the end of tonight's program, each candidate will be allowed to make a closing statement that is not to exceed 1 minute. As moderator, the Candidates Night Committee allows me to interrupt a candidate if the answer by that candidate is construed as non-responsive or needs clarification. And as an FYI to our candidates, our light system here for the timing, when you see the white box go off, that's going to mean that you have 30 seconds left. And when you have the red box go off, that means you have 15 seconds left. So just make sure we keep that in mind. We will begin this evening by hearing policy statements read by each of our 2 school committee candidates. Rodney Cleaves was unable to make it today, so I'll be reading his portion. And Diana LeBeau, if you wouldn't mind coming up here to read yours as well. At this time, while Diana settles in, I will read Rodney's statement. Rodney moved to Chelmsford in 1994. His wife Elaine had been here for 19 years. They devoted their time to blending their families as well as hosting nearly 500 foster children over the next 25 years. 25 years of raising and nurturing a diverse family of children puts him above his peers in the understanding of a child's needs. The understanding that gives Rod a great problem-solving skill set, which is very much needed on the school committee board. Rod can see both high-level proposals and understands the attention to details. He holds Boston University degrees in electronics engineering and computer science, a master's from Gordon Conwell, and a doctorate from Andersonville Theological Seminary. He had served on various town boards while living in Maynard and served on the Boy Scout Council and his church's senior high work teams. Rod retired in 2020 from 25 years of private industry and 22 years of government service. His last position was as the CIO of the Bedford VA Hospital. Rod is passionate about parental involvement in their child's education. Parents should be encouraged to be involved in their children's education, not discouraged or shut out. When parents are actively involved in their children's education, that child thrives and does well. He believes that when a parent entrusts their children in the schools, our teachers will teach them the core subjects they need to compete: reading, reading comprehension, writing, the STEM sciences, and the soft sciences. Our children need to be able to not only compete, but to excel. He says, "It scares me to imagine how much more our children are expected to learn over what prior generations had to learn. The board needs to see the whole picture: budget, generational compression, new concepts, new social ideas and morals, and the outside pressures from both the internet, peer pressure, and competitive educational systems." Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from Diana LeBeau. Diana has been a resident of Chelmsford for nearly a decade. She is the parent of 2 children attending our schools, a proud member of the Chelmsford Mothers Club, and a frequent school volunteer. She's also a career educator, beginning as a classroom teacher, working in youth development, and more recently, working for nonprofit organizations that support professional learning and school improvement statewide. Diana hopes to represent the families and community members of Chelmsford on our school committee to combine her broad education experience with her deep commitment to Chelmsford as a parent and as a resident. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, and thank you so much to the Chelmsford Business Association for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. If you're here, I know you take very seriously your responsibility to choose candidates wisely, and you were probably expecting a public debate. I was too, but I am still eager to detail a few of the issues that I know matter to Chelmsford voters: our schools, our children, and what is ultimately our future. So let me tell you a little bit about what I stand for and why I'm running. I feel like I'm the right candidate for Chelmsford School Committee for 2 important reasons: the deep commitment of a mom, the parent of 2 children attending our schools, and that broader perspective and expertise I bring as an educator. My entire career has been in education. As Amanda shared, I had an early career getting my hands dirty teaching middle school, and after a few years, I moved to administrative leadership roles in schools and in youth development, where I provided students with support and enrichment. Finally, for nearly 8 years, I've been working for nonprofit organizations that strive to make schools better. Sometimes that work's involved leading schools and districts through change processes, and more recently, that work's prioritized supporting teachers across the state of Massachusetts with professional development and support systems to help them be their best. I'm really excited to be able to apply this expertise to Chelmsford schools, where I have some real skin in the game as a mom. I'm not a politician. I've never had aspirations to elected office for its own sake. I do believe, however, in doing exactly what I can do to make a difference. So my reason for running for this office is first and foremost to ensure that we open up a stronger line of communication between the school district and our community. And this is the role that I really see for a democratically elected school committee. It's supposed to be that direct connection between the schools and us. I don't have a pet issue or a bone to pick because I think our schools are mostly great. They're a big part of why I chose to move to Chelmsford about a decade ago. But I do have 3 things I'll mention that I hope to prioritize if you choose to elect me to the school committee this spring. Firstly, I want the school committee to assume its rightful visionary role in forging the direction of our schools, both in the short and long-term future. A lot of the jobs our elementary students will have after high school don't exist yet today. So our schools need to be forward-thinking to prepare the workforce of tomorrow and to cultivate the engaged citizens and neighbors we hope that they'll become. There are a lot of great things happening in our high school, especially some of our early college programming, but we need to make sure there's alignment from pre-K through graduation to find more opportunities to give our students work-based learning experiences, such as in our high-need trades, and to think creatively about how to build stronger partnerships to do just that. Secondly, I want to work with the district and town to find opportunities for our schools to improve in sustainable ways. To give you an example, I want to scrutinize our approach to teaching early literacy, which right now blends some fantastic curriculum with some that's not scientifically backed. There are some great opportunities right now to get state funding to implement a new research-backed, Massachusetts-developed K-2 reading curriculum. I don't wanna let free money pass us by. I don't wanna let free money for better pedagogy pass us by. Thirdly, I wanna take a look at our middle schools. We have a strategic plan that specifies what a Chelmsford graduate looks like, but that plan only starts in the 9th grade. I know we're exploring a new middle school project, and I support that process, but creating a world-class middle school does not begin and end with its facility. Nationally, we have a mental health crisis for young adolescents in particular, and I know more needs to be done in our middle schools to support them in self-discipline, collaboration, navigating their complex emotions, so that every student feels safe and every student can learn at their best. I also hear concerning reports from fellow parents that their kids are falling through the cracks academically, especially students with special needs, of whom less than 20% met state standards last year in math and reading at both Parker and McCarthy. This is just one data point, but it's deeply concerning and it deserves real scrutiny and an action plan. Some of that is up to the experts, which is the educators in our schools, but I think the school committee can take a more active role in holding our district accountable and charting a course for how our schools can become even stronger for all our students. I believe in our schools, not just as a place where students can learn, but as an integral, vital pillar of our town. And this campaign in our schools needs your voice. So, if what I've said sounds interesting to you, join me this Saturday at the Java Room from 10 to 12 a.m., where I'm happy to talk about issues. And please support me on April 2nd. Thank you, and thank you to the Chelmsford Business Association.
Thank you, Diana. We appreciate you reading a policy statement, and great timing too. All right, for the next part of our evening, we will have the planning board come and join us. If we could have Deirdre and then Doreen and then Chris come sit down. Thank you all for being here. There are 4 candidates seeking to win one of the 3 available positions for the planning board. Absent today is Paul McDougall. We have here today Deirdre Connolly, Doreen Deschler, and Christopher LaValle. So at this time, I will read each of their respective introductions. Starting with Deirdre. Deirdre moved to Chelmsford in 2001, raising her children here and working here as a family physician. She became politically involved not long after when there was a neighborhood school closure and an override. Her interest in planning arose when a multifamily luxury condominium project was proposed in the town center in the historic district and close to the wetlands, leading her to wish to serve on the planning board. She hopes to ensure fairness in this application of the zoning code, as well as to help preserve the character of the town with a specific concern for protecting our neighborhoods. Thank you for being here, Deirdre. And now for Doreen. Doreen has lived in Chelmsford since 1989. She believes that elected officials should work for the people who voted for them. As a member of your planning board, she promises to make sure that every resident will be notified whenever a building or buildings are proposed anywhere near their neighborhood. Doreen believes single-family home neighborhoods should be protective from overzealous big developers. Single-family homes are the epitome of the American dream and what makes Chelmsford Chelmsford. These neighborhoods are under attack. Doreen wants to do everything in her power to protect these neighborhoods. She also wants to protect, preserve, and save our open spaces. The town belongs to you, the people. Elected officials are supposed to work for you, not developers. She will also fight for our constitutional right to self-governance and work for you. Thank you, Doreen. And last but not least, for Chris. Chris LaValle has lived in Chelmsford for over 12 years with his wife, Linda, and their 2 children. He has a biology degree from Providence College and both a master's in biology and an MBA from Boston College. Chris led organizational design efforts at Novartis for 10 years and is currently the managing director of research technologies at Harvard Business School. As a resident, Chris spearheaded a zoning change that prohibits large distribution centers in town. Currently a member of the planning board for over a year, He led a comprehensive review and update of the board's policies, and he is dedicated to serving the town. Thank you, Chris. All right, so we will be starting in order here. So Deirdre will answer first, and then Doreen, and then Chris. And for our first question of the night, what motivated you to run for the planning board? Please explain to the audience what you identify as the most critical action item that you want to address if elected to the planning board.
I decided to run for the planning board because I was during COVID observing the development of, or the presentation of a new development in the center of town, as I said in my opening statement, that was proposed that I thought was not sensible. It was proposed to put a very large luxury condominium in the parking lot behind Santander, which would have taken up all the parking that we needed to be able to develop the town center adequately. And as a consequence, I started getting involved, started paying attention, did a petition, and I decided to run because I feel that transparency is important in the machinations of the planning board, and I wanted to kind of shine a light and make sure that there was consistency and fairness in the application of the zoning code.
Thank you. And Doreen.
I decided to run after I saw residents getting frustrated with not being notified when things were going on in their neighborhood and finding out after things were happening. And I decided that I wanted to run because I wanted to work with the people of the town, with the residents of the town who are the backbone of this town. They're the ones that we should be working for because they're the ones that are paying most of the taxes and so on and so forth that run the town. They should be notified of when things are coming to their way and know what's going on. And not just the abutters and not just the people that it's gonna affect. I think there are certain things that even though it's not in their neighborhood, it still affects them and they should be notified. They should know what's going on in their town, such as the MBTA community. Every single resident in this town should know about this and have a say.
Thank you very much, Doreen. And Christopher.
Thank you. I really enjoy giving back to the community. My background and my schooling has allowed me to become very detail-oriented, and a lot of the projects that come before the planning board are extremely complex and really need to have a deep dive. We also need to challenge developers more. We can't just take their word for it. We have to verify what they're saying and really dig into those projects. Some of the areas that I would like to work on improving with the planning board is zoning conflicts in town that are really creating some problems, and also continuing to update our policies, our bylaws, and a lot of our definitions of uses that are not as up to date as we need to protect the town. Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. And for our second question of the night, starting with Chris and then to Deirdre and Doreen, what boards have you served on in the past?
So I have, since moving to Chelmsford, I have become a town meeting rep. Been a town meeting rep for almost the entire 12 years I've been here. I started on the IT Capital Planning Committee. When that was shifted, I then transitioned onto the Capital Committee and advising the town in some of the capital priorities. And then started becoming involved in the planning board itself, first as an associate member last year, and then being nominated as a full member for this past part of the year.
Thank you, Chris. And Deirdre.
So I was a town meeting member for a number of years, and then when we moved neighborhoods from the Westlands to town center, I stepped off for a couple of years. I moved right in the time you had to pull papers, and it just didn't work right, and I decided I had work with family and home and work that I took a couple of years off. But I've been on the town meeting rep roster for at least probably 12 or 14 of the years we lived in town, which is 22. I also was on the fire department. I forget the name of the committee, but it was a committee meant to determine whether the fire department should take over the ambulance contract. And then finally, I was most recently on the vision and mission committee that helped develop the mission statement and the vision statement for the town just a couple years ago.
Thank you.
I have lived a very, very busy life. I raised 7 children, so I didn't have much time to be on any boards or anything like that until recently. My children all grew and moved out of the house, and I became bored at home, just being an at-home mom with having an empty nest. It kind of drove me into being more involved and seeing what was going on in the town and not liking it and deciding it's time for me to take a stand to change things. And that's when I decided to run for planning board. Last year I ran. The only committee that I can say I'm on, which might be not a good thing for me to say right now, but I'm gonna say it anyway, is that I am the chair of the Republican Town Committee. That's it. And I'm a state committee woman.
Awesome. Thank you, Doreen. Appreciate it. And for our third question of the night, starting with Doreen, have you read the town charter and what did you find most interesting about it?
I have read the charter. I'm still reading the charter. There's a lot in there. There's a lot to read. There's a lot to learn. A lot of the things that I found in there that I liked was that the fact that it's saying that it's there to protect the residents. It's there to protect the people, the residents of Chelmsford. And I like that idea. I like that we're supposed to be zoning to protect the residents. And I want it to just keep it that way. I want our town to continue to zone to protect the residents of Chelmsford. And that's why I don't want our zoning bylaws to be changed to be given to the state.
Thank you. And Chris?
I have read the town charter, and the most fascinating aspect to me has been the town meeting form of government that it describes. I think that I grew up in Manchester, New Hampshire, in a city with the mayor and aldermen, and I've really become enthralled with how direct people can be involved in the town government through the town meeting.
Thank you, Chris. And Deirdre?
Oh, golly. I mean, I agree with Chris about the town meeting. I having watched town meeting, I feel like it can be somewhat hijacked. I like the fact that the zoning code that we as planning board members are meant to interpret and enforce is ultimately owned by the town meeting. So anything that we want to do or change or implement has to be brought to the representative body. I think that's, to me, the most, especially as it pertains to the planning board, I think that's the most interesting aspect.
Thank you. And for our fourth question of the night, we'll be starting with you, Deirdre. As a planning board member, what do you think is the biggest deterrent from development in town? And are there any changes you would make to improve the existing process?
I think that we have a number of underutilized buildings. I think that we need to find better ways to redevelop those buildings. I'm not a huge fan of super dense developments at all. I think there's a lot of pressure from a number of directions at the moment for housing. I think one of our main constraining factors at the moment is our sewer, and I think in some ways it's a great opportunity for us to circle back around and look at the overlay districts and see, are they working properly? Is there things we should do to modify them? For instance, the town center was envisioned to be commercial or retail on the ground floor on retail, but that hasn't really been enforced. So I think we should circle around for that. Sorry.
Thanks, Deirdre. And Doreen?
I had the same type of issues at the underdevelopment of Route 129. I think we have a lot of potential there, and I think we need to start doing whatever we need to do to invite retail or commercial or whatever to go to 129. We have empty spaces, empty buildings there. We shouldn't be building more buildings elsewhere until we fill up those buildings. Those buildings there, they're already there, they're already zoned, that's what we should be working on. We should be working on filling up those buildings there. I mean, maybe not for housing, but for like commercial. I mean, we need more commercial stuff to help with the taxes in this town. If we could get some commercial, buildings into people or companies to come to Chelmsford and go into those buildings, it would be a great help for the town.
Okay, thank you, Doreen. And Chris?
In addition to the obvious sewer problem that we've got, I think the issue is not the lack of development, but the lack of the right development for Chelmsford. And I think fixing some of those zoning conflicts, fixing a lot of our outdated bylaws and definitions will help bring in the right development for Chelmsford. That's the right fit, the right size, and the right what Chelmsford needs.
Thank you. And for the final question for the planning board, we'll have each candidate ask a question to a fellow candidate, starting with Chris to Deirdre.
Deirdre, what do you think the planning board's next priority should be?
Well, like I just said, I feel like it's important that we take the time where we have constraints from the sewer to look at our zoning, to review inconsistencies. We started looking at that last year and identified several areas. We started with the River Neck area for obvious reasons, but then we got sidetracked with MBTA. So I think we should circle back around and do that. Look at the inconsistencies. So where you have commercial next to residential, even if it's zoned commercial, we should make some kind of adjustment there. Also, I think that there's we've had a few projects that have come up that have had problems with the aquifer protection and the soil and the stormwater management, and I feel like if businesses feel like things are gonna come up and they're not gonna be able to predict how the process, this planning board process is gonna proceed, then they're gonna be reluctant to come to town. So I think it's important that we get buy-in from the various town boards and try and find a better way to streamline our process so that we don't inhibit business, but we're still able to protect the town's resources.
Thanks, Deirdre. And now if you could ask a question to Doreen.
Oh. Okay, I guess I didn't really think about that. I thought I was gonna ask a question of Chris. Well, I guess, Doreen, do you see any areas that you think the planning board, other than notifying the neighbors or the townspeople, do you see any other crucial issues, and do you see any direction that you would take to help address those issues?
The only crucial issues that I see is sometimes, I know it's not easy, I know the planning board's not an easy job, you have a lot to consider when you're considering, allowing buildings to go in. But I think sometimes we get away from thinking about the persons or the persons and neighbors that are living in a certain neighborhood where things are proposed. We don't think about them. We just think about the buildings that are being proposed, such as 10 duplexes going into a single family unit where there's neighbors that are living in that neighborhood and it's a dead-end street. And it's just like, it's too much for those neighbors that have been living there for generations, and now we're not thinking about them. We're thinking about, okay, let's let the developer do this wonderful duplex development thing. So I just think I would personally myself, I would start looking at the neighborhoods first, the people that live in those neighborhoods and have lived in them for, ages, and listen to them before I decide whether I'm gonna even think about approving a development like that.
Thank you, Doreen. And if you have a question for Christopher?
Hi, Chris. Me and Chris have been going back and forth about the MBTA, and I know, he's done a lot of work on it, and I appreciate it. But I still have a concern because in order for us to comply with the MBTA mandate, it states that it cannot be age restricted, and where you guys have yes, where you've decided to put it is wonderful if it will go through. But it's already got age restricted housing there, and I don't see the state saying, okay, that's okay, you can have age restricted even though it's not age restricted as the zoning, and that concerns me. And the most part that concerns me also is the as of right clause. What would you do about those two things?
Okay, I'm not sure I have enough time to address both of those.
Okay, just one, pick one.
All right, the as of right. So the as of right essentially means that a developer can come in and without special permit develop. However, they still have to follow all of the other guidelines and permits, the aquifer protection bylaws, all of those zoning bylaws that we have. So they do have to still adhere to all of those other areas. The age restriction refers to the zoning overlay that we're developing for MBTA zoning. It does not impact the underlying zoning, and the age restriction is in that area on the underlying zoning. We're developing an overlay to go on top of that, which allows development of either case.
All right, thank you. And to close out the planning board section of our night, I'm hoping each of you could read out your closing statements, starting with Deirdre.
Sure. So in writing my closing statement, I decided I would first circle back and look at why I ran for the planning board originally. And I found that many of the reasons still pertain. The first and foremost reason I'm running for the planning board is because I have enjoyed learning and serving the town and being a part of this board. And it's a pretty steep learning curve. And I feel like it's kind of ridiculous to spend 3 years learning the job and then not continue to utilize those skills for at least another term. Initially, I got involved because I wanted to impart fairness and consistency into the process of zoning and granting of variances. And I think that I feel comfortable and happy that the board that I'm a part of is performing that way. I also feel that zoning decisions should take into consideration the needs of the neighborhood as well as the broader vision for the town. I think the zoning should be a reflection of how the town sees itself and where it wants to see itself in the future. And I think that to the extent that those are not aligned, that we should be looking at the zoning code and trying to more closely align those processes.
Thank you, Deirdre. And Doreen.
Okay, I didn't really prepare a speech, but one of the main reasons, like I said, that I wanted to run for the planning board is to make sure that the residents of Chelmsford are informed of everything. I want to work for the residents of Chelmsford. I believe in the residents of Chelmsford. I believe in the town of Chelmsford. I love this town. I don't want to see this town become a metropolis. I don't want to see this town get destroyed by overbuilding. We have a lot of issues. We have a lot of growing pains going on right now, such as the sewage, such as our schools being at capacity. Our water department isn't kind of up to par either right now. We have fire departments that need some help. They really need some upgrading. They're old, they're outdated, they need help. And I think we need to address those issues before we decide to start building any big buildings, any big projects, any multifamily housing. All that stuff needs to take a back seat to the problems that we already have going on in town. We need to fix those first.
Thank you. And Chris.
First, I'd like to thank the Business Association for hosting this event, as well as the other candidates for an engaging discussion. I'd like to thank all of you in attendance and for those watching at home. I also appreciate the encouragement and support I've received from the town. I've really enjoyed fighting for the townspeople over the last year on the planning board. I think that I've made some really good progress enhancing the bylaws and the policies on the board and making improvements wherever we can. And I really look forward to another term on the board. My name is Chris LaValle. I am running for planning board, and I would appreciate one of your 3 votes on April 2nd at the voting booth. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all 3 of you, Deirdre, Doreen, and Chris, for being here tonight. That concludes our planning board section of the evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we could have our select board candidates come sit down in the order of Aaron, and then George, and then Patrick. Thank you for being here tonight, gentlemen. So to introduce our 3 select board candidates, Aaron Cunningham, George Dixon, and Patrick Maloney. There are 3 candidates seeking to win 2 of the available positions for select board. At this time, I will read their respective introductions. Starting with Aaron. I would like to introduce Aaron Cunningham, candidate for select board. Aaron is a newer resident, just under 6 years, but a longtime member of the Chelmsford community through his wife, a 20-plus year teacher at Center School. He currently serves on the Strategic Planning Steering Committee, is a town elections official, and served on both the Recycling and Vision and Values committees. Aaron currently works as an independent consultant after a 20-year career in both public and privately held companies. As a former small business owner, Aaron would like to thank the CBA for the invitation to tonight's annual candidates night. Aaron. And next we have George Dixon. George Dixon has served the town of Chelmsford as a select board member since 2009. But is a son of Chelmsford, having lived in town his entire life and raising 2 children with his late wife Terry. As a 3rd-generation resident, George loves nothing more than helping people and making a positive impact on the town. He's a proud graduate of Chelmsford High School and UMass Lowell and is now a member of the CHS Alumni Association and an inductee into the CHS Hall of Fame. George is running for a 6th term because of his dedication to the community that he loves. He advocates for sports and recreation and is proud that he was chair and a major fundraiser for the committee that brought the commercial turf fields into town. Some of his focused advocacy includes helping the residents of Williamsburg when erosion had washed away the riverbank, arranging for National Grid to replace Scotty Hollow after Scotty Hollow, residents experienced frequent brownouts, leading the effort to replace lights at Wedgwood, and attaining 10% affordable housing at previously stood at 4%. In addition to his duties on the select board, George's liaison assignments have included the Lowell Regional Transit Authority, Permanent Building Committee, 3 water departments, and the Capital Planning Committee, just to name a few, from which he gained experience managing many challenging and fulfilling situations. He also led the effort to honor local World War II veterans through street signage and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial on Northtown Common. He is running for a 6th term so he can continue this good work and respectfully asks for your consideration on Election Day, Tuesday, April 2nd. Thank you, George. And last but not least, Pat Maloney. Pat Maloney moved to Chelmsford in 1971 and is a 1979 Chelmsford High School graduate. He raised his family with 3 children here, so Chelmsford holds a special place in his heart. Pat has owned and managed his Chelmsford-based construction management company for advanced technology facilities for 34 years. He has saved taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars by volunteering his management service to the town on various public construction projects over a 20-year period. He understands fiscal restraint and how to make progress in the face of adversity. Pat has worked with all town departments and state representatives, all on a volunteer basis for the town's benefit. He understands government, how to communicate effectively with everyone, and how to get the job done. Pat looks out for taxpayers so we can maintain our cherished quality of life in Chelmsford without having to sacrifice our own town services. Thank you to all three of you. For our first question of the night, we'll start with Aaron and then move to George and then Patrick. What motivated you to run for select board? Please explain to the audience what you identify as the most critical action item that you want to address if selected to the select board.
That was for me or Pat, sorry.
For Aaron.
Oh, sorry. First of all, thank you everybody for coming tonight. I see sometimes life deals you just the right inflection point, and now is the right time for me to run for the board. With my career change, no longer being a small business owner, is going to afford me the time to be able to dedicate what needs to be done in the coming years. We have a lot of big items coming up that you heard about before, zoning, fire station, schools. I've spent a career growing and working with other businesses, and I have those skills that I think we need as what is the chief policymaking body of Chelmsford, the select board. So I'm eager to serve the community. I've done it through several committees now, and I'm ready to take that next step and work with you for the next 3 years.
Thank you, Aaron. And we're moving to George now.
Thank you to the CBA for having us here tonight, and I want to welcome everybody. I wish there were more people here, because that's one of my goals, is to get more people involved in the town government. And that's part of what's motivated me to run again, plus continue some of the projects I've been working on along the way. I think the most critical part is the lack of interest by a larger majority of the town. And that would be a big goal of mine this year, would be to get more people involved in all phases of the government. Because the town belongs to the citizens, and we hear a lot of complaints. So I like to see them step up and try to help us solve those problems. It's going to be a tough fiscal year, and we're going to need all the help we can get. Thank you.
Thanks, George. And Patrick.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the CBA for inviting us here this evening for this important debate. Much appreciated. I'm running for select board because I think I contribute to the town using my experience in business and life. I've served on many boards over the years in town, mostly building committees, but I've worked with almost all town departments. A year ago, I might not have said I would run for selectman. A lot of things have happened in the past years, and I stay heavily involved and pay attention very closely to what's going on in town. I understand that we have some potential budget pressures coming in the future. I manage budgets day in and day out. I also understand there's a fire project and school projects, and these are all things right in my wheelhouse that I've worked for the town in the past. Bringing $17 million back during the school moratorium and saving the town hundreds of thousands of dollars in various other ways by being project manager on different projects. So I'm running to get back involved and help the town.
Okay, great, thank you. And starting with you, Patrick, for our second question, do you think that a split tax rate benefits the community as a whole?
This is always a tough one. So I'm a businessman and I'm a resident, so I fall in both categories here. The tax rate right here today is split enough. I don't wanna see it go any more wider than it is. I am in favor of even tax rate for both. This is not a complaint because I'm happy to do it, and I'm happy to pay a little bit more, but as a small business owner in town, we pay more we pay a commercial sewer rate, we pay a commercial water rate, we pay, when we put sewer in, our buildings, we have to pay the whole thing, soup to nuts. I had to put in a grinder pump and pay for the grinder pump. So we have many other, fiscal pressures that face us, and I think that we're not Burlington. If we were Burlington, it'd be a lot different because we'd have a lot more commercial space. We don't have that commercial space to make it up, and I think to a certain degree, it's unfair to the small businesses in the town.
Thank you. And moving to Aaron.
So I had to do a little bit of research on it because my small businesses weren't here in Chelmsford, and we didn't have a tax rate issue where I was. I do agree that it's unfair, but and my concern is with a split tax rate, as Pat said, the small businesses get hurt, and as a small business owner, I certainly understand the challenges of that. I mean, UPS is not gonna necessarily get the same pain that a small business would. I think today it is established. I would support phasing out like it had been done. I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s where we had this and it phased out. I would support that to continue to do that, although I definitely am going to be cognizant of we don't want to shift all of that burden all of a sudden across the spectrum to the residents either. So I think a phased approach and making the appropriate adjustments is good.
Okay, great. Thank you. And George.
Well, everybody knows what my position was, and was one of the people who implemented or brought forth the split rate. I thought at the time it was a very small rate compared to other areas, and I am part of what I did present was the small business exemption, which helps out about 150 of the small businesses in town. And I believe it's fair. It's $1.20 against $1, as opposed to if you take all the surrounding towns, it's probably an average of about, I think Bellrick is like 175, Andover's 165, Tewksbury is 165. I just think it's fair, and hopefully the people who save some of the money are going to spend it in town anyway. So, but as I said, I did put in a small business exemption, which helps out about 150 small businesses, which pay the same rate as a resident. How to qualify for that means that you have a building less than $1 million, or you have 10 or less employees. So I don't really think it's that unfair, and I think it gives somebody older. We were a very older community at the time, and I think we still are, and I think it helps out the older people in town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For our third question, we'll start with George, and then Patrick, and then Aaron. What boards have you served on in the past?
As far as the town is concerned, I've been a town meeting representative for about 20-something years. And I've just volunteered. I've done a lot of, as far as boards, town boards, I've done a lot. I haven't done much in those period of time, but I've coached baseball for 20-odd years. I've worked with scouts. I've worked with. I volunteered in a lot of different organizations, and so this was my first try at. And I was I was older when I got elected. And here I am. I'm still here, and I like it more and more every year. And I think I've done a pretty good job. And I've been transparent, and, you know, give it another shot. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick?
Thank you. I don't have the list of them all, but I'm gonna try to remember them. So I started back in like 2000, somewhere around there, on the school building committee where the town was contemplating doing a $110 million high school project that did not come to fruition. And then from there, we went on and through a lot of hard work of different people in town. There was a $32 million school project developed, and that formed the secondary school building committee, which I was the chair of. We did that work during the moratorium. I successfully lobbied the state to bring back $17 million to the town during that moratorium, which we weren't expecting to get. From there, so that was a successful project. We bought the PAC, the Performing Arts Center at the high school, science wings, windows, doors, boilers, roofs to the 3 upper middle schools. I went on from there to do the fire DPW study committee. We did that, and then from there, the permanent building committee for many, many years. Came off the permanent building committee just to take a break for a while a couple of years ago, but I've been functioning as owner's project manager on the school modular building project. That was a $9 million project, and the North Fire Station. So all bought in on time, on budget, and that's what I've been doing for the town for 20 years.
Thank you. And Aaron?
Definitely don't have the resume of my fellow candidates here. When we did finally move to town after being indirect community members for 20 plus years, one of the things I jumped on right away was an opening on the recycling committee, which I ended up chairing for a little bit as well, and that gave me an opportunity to kind of see how things work at town hall, start to get to know people a little bit, and as somebody that just I tend to read a lot, and I got sucked into single stream recycling. It just seemed like an understanding that it seemed like a place to start. I do serve as a Precinct 9 town meeting rep. I was selected with Deirdre to be on the Visions and Value Committee, which was definitely in my wheelhouse, and I'm proud to see that posted in every public building today. And I'm currently serving on the committee, the Strategic Plan Steering Committee, which again I think is in my wheelhouse for what I'd like to continue to do as select board member, pending your vote, to kind of bring everything together under one umbrella.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And for our 4th question, starting with Aaron, state budgets and town budgets are under stress due to inflation. If you were to make budget cuts anywhere, where would you make them?
So this question comes up a lot, and I like to answer it this way. I recognize that, you look at top line, and we're kind of tapped out. Residents are tapped out, businesses are tapped out. And as people will have heard me say before, going line by line is not something that's necessarily practical. You're going to have to look at it in bigger chunks, and we need to start looking now at, there's a group of spend items that are must-haves and that we have to figure out how to fund, and they have to be funded. Everything else is going to be the nice-to-haves, and those things are going to need to be picked at. And I think sitting here today giving you a list is not going to be appropriate when that's a much deeper dive discussion. I would like to see us put some pressure onto that top line and fill some of the millions of square feet of unused business space right now. And I think that's a way that'll help make some of those budget decisions in the future a little bit easier.
Okay, thanks. And George?
Okay, I think it's, I don't know, whatever you're gonna have to make some cuts, they're gonna have to be very tough ones. The projected income coming from the state this year is very minimal. The House just filed a $260 million supplemental bill to help the migrant housing. But in the last 7 months, we've been between 20 and, the state has been between 20 and $30 million short of their projected revenues, which is the first time that's happened in over 20 years. So I don't think, we can't cut, certain things we can't cut are gonna be like our health benefits for our workers, and also our retirees' benefits. So whatever cuts we're gonna have to make, we're gonna have to look very deep. It's gonna take a lot of work, and there's gonna be, it's gonna be a lot of unhappy people, I think. So, thank you.
All right. And Patrick?
Amanda, would you mind repeating the question?
Absolutely. State budgets and town budgets are under stress due to inflation. If you were to make budget cuts, where would you make them?
Okay. This is always the question, right? And it's a tough one because I can't imagine cutting any place right now. We've been level funded in all of our departments for years now. We're not gaining anything, so I don't know what we could cut. I think what we need to do is explore the process of the town figuring out who and what they are and where they want to go. So we're not a city, we're not a farming community anymore. So I think it's really a matter of figuring out what the town really wants, and I think it's getting out to the town and soliciting that input to say, what's important to you? We know schools and all those things are important, but if I had to sit right here today and say that, there's something that we could cut, I can't think of anything other than, starting to cut labor positions, which will only hurt the town, and I wouldn't stand behind that at this point. So.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. For the last question of the select board portion of our night, we'll have each of you ask another question, starting with Patrick to Aaron.
Okay. Get my question out here. I do have that someplace here. Okay, so, Aaron, what is your definition of teamwork and what makes you a great team player?
Definition of teamwork. Teamwork is everybody working in the same direction for a shared common goal. I've had the opportunity to manage a lot of people over the years, and diverse mix of people, personalities at that, and teamwork's kind of how I thrive. When I started working as an independent consultant and working more from home, and then COVID hit and everybody was home, there was an adjustment to that. I work together collaboratively as a group. As I always said, I'm not a flip-flopper, but I reserve the right to be educated and change my positions. I definitely like to be challenged, and if I'm not getting challenged, I'll be the one in the group to challenge, to just make sure we've done our due diligence to come to the right decision as a team. Thank you for the question.
Awesome. All right. And Aaron to George.
So George, we've had an opportunity to talk a lot over the last week or two and some conversations. You bring a tremendous wealth of knowledge to the select board and to the town, and you've given so much of yourself. And another term, I think, is something that you're definitely looking forward to. If there's one thing that you want to accomplish, and maybe deciding that you were done after this, what would you really want to accomplish, the one big thing over the next 3 years?
Biggest thing I'd like to accomplish is to get many more people involved in the government. It's terrible. I mean, we have 2 races. We have 2 committees. We have the Board of Selectmen and the school committee races. We didn't even have a race until the last day for the select board, and maybe the last 10 days for the school board. And you're talking about a $160 million budget run basically by these 2 boards with the help of many other people. And I just think that we just need to get more people. There's too much apathy in this town. People want to be critical, but they don't have anything constructive to say. So if I could get just if each one of us step up and just do something, join a club. We give out the community vacancies and things like that at every select board meeting. Join one, get involved, help this town become the town it used to be, and the best town it could be in the area. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, George. And finally, if you, George, could ask a question to Patrick.
Patrick, this is a little bit redundant because I think but what would you see as the biggest challenge facing Chelmsford? And what would you, what would you prioritize to address it as a select board member?
All right, thank you, George, for the question. I think, bar none, because I've had several discussions with the town manager recently, I think the coming budget crunches are gonna be our biggest challenges going forward in the year. You know, there's other things other reasons I got involved because of, you know, things that I can definitely help out with, but because I manage budgets regularly, this one's coming and it's gonna be something that we have to grapple with, and there's likely gonna have to be cuts. But, you know, we're in a good position still. Paul Cohen has kept us in a good position. We have a AAA rating, so if we do decide to take on and embark on any projects, we have a AAA rating. We're borrowing at the best rates possible, best rates of anybody out there. So it kind of goes back to figuring out who we are, what we want to be, and then taking on the budget challenges and figuring out what's most important to us.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And that will take us to our closing statements. If we could start with Aaron.
So again, I'd like to thank everybody in attendance and certainly the CBA for the invitation tonight, and definitely thank my fellow candidates for the questions and the discussions. I think I'm the right person for the job, the right time. I do agree we have some budget challenges coming. I don't think it's all doomsday because we do have a good rainy day fund. We do have good creditability, but we're gonna have to make some tough decisions, and I've had to make a lot of those over the last 25 years in business. And I'm certainly not equating a for-profit business and a town to be the same, but there are definitely things that are similar. I have the time commitment, as some of you have gotten to know me over the last couple of weeks. I'm definitely willing to talk, I'm definitely willing to hear, and the outreach portion of this job is something that I'm really looking forward to. So I'd like to ask you and the voters that are watching for one of your 2 votes on April 2nd. And again, I thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you, Aaron. And George.
Yes, I'd like to thank the CBA for having me here tonight, having us all here, and to give us an opportunity to express our feelings about the town. I've enjoyed 15 years of it. It just, every year it seems to get better, even though it's getting more and more difficult. And that is the reason I'd like to see more and more people involved. I know I've said it more than once tonight, but I just can't think of anything that would help this town more. And there's a lot of smart people and a lot of talented people in this town, and they just don't get involved. I don't know what the problem is, but I wish we could find out, and I wish we could get them involved. I'd appreciate a chance to continue. So if I could ask for one of your 2 votes on April 2nd, I'd appreciate it. And good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, George. And finally, Patrick.
Thank you, Amanda. Well, thank you to the Chelmsford Business Association for hosting this debate this evening. It's very important that we all get together and express our views. Everyone brings their own leadership style and skills to the select board. I'm a worker. It's what I've always done. I'm just a worker. So, you know, I've mentioned earlier that I returned $17 million to the town through successful lobbying. I've bought all the projects I've worked on in town on time and on budget, and those include the Fire Department building, Center for the Arts, the North Chelmsford Community Center, the Country Club, Department of Public Works building, Central Admin building for the school projects, firehouse up in North Chelmsford, and modular additions, et cetera, for the schools. So, if elected to the select board, I will bring a wealth of experience, dedication, and passion for our town's well-being. I will work collaboratively with fellow board members, town officials, and residents to address the issues facing our community, prioritize transparency and accountability, and make decisions that reflect the best interests of all the residents of Chelmsford. I'm not just asking for your vote, I'm asking for your partnership in building a better Chelmsford that we can all be proud to call home. It's for these reasons and more that I respectfully ask for one of your 2 votes on April 2nd. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. We really appreciate your time. And thank you to everybody that attended tonight. And don't forget, please vote on Tuesday, April 2nd. Thanks.